Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my channel. I appreciate it. I'm outside the ICE facility in Dallas where this awful shooting happened. There's a sniper, according to investigators, who showed up here, got up in one of the buildings behind the ICE facility and started shooting just basically all over the place. Ended up hitting three migrants. One of the migrants, an ICE detainee, was killed. I know one of them is in critical condition. The shooter took his own life, apparently had anti-ICE written on one of the bullets. I'm looking into everything that happened. I'm looking into the shooter. I'm looking into the motivation. I've got Tracy Walder, former CIA officer and FBI agent, out here with me. I'm going to get into all of it in this edition of Brian Entin Investigates. Hey guys, so I'm outside the ICE facility here in Dallas. This is where the shooting happened, the awful shooting this morning. I've been compiling information all day about exactly what unfolded, about the shooter. I'm going to get to it all. Basically, this all started at 6:40 a.m. here. ICE facility is right behind me. That is when authorities say a sniper opened fire from a nearby rooftop about 450 feet away or so, and shot indiscriminately. And the word indiscriminately is important here, and I'm going to explain why in a second. At the ICE building, shot at a van in the Sallyport, and that is where the victims were actually shot. 3 detainees were shot, 1 was killed, the other 2 were injured, and we know that at least one of them is in critical condition. And then the gunman was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The 3 detainees were in the country illegally, according to ICE, and they weren't supposed to stay at this facility. They were actually just being processed here at this facility, and then they were going to be moved to a longer-term facility. So this is interesting. This photo is released of bullets from up on the rooftop from where the shooter was, and you can see it says anti-ICE. So it appears, based on what the shooter wrote on the bullets, that person was anti-ICE. But what's strange is, and his name, by the way, is 29-year-old Joshua Jahn, which I'm going to get to sort of what I know about him in a second. But he wrote on the bullet anti-ICE, but what's strange is he ended up shooting only migrants. None of the ICE agents were hit. And so it appears if he was shooting indiscriminately, maybe he was trying to shoot the agents and only shot the migrants. We don't really know. But he also shot inside the facility. You can see there's these pictures where you can see bullet holes in the windows of the facility, and there's even a bullet hole. You can see a bullet went right through a flag, an American flag, inside the ICE facility. So as I said, the shooter is 29-year-old Joshua Jahn. Records that I've seen show that his parents live in Collin County, which is not far from Dallas, and Dallas police have confirmed that police there are also assisting with the investigation. After John was identified as the alleged shooter, his brother talked to NBC News, said that he didn't believe his brother was especially interested in politics, had not voiced his opinions on immigration before. He was quoted as saying he didn't have strong feelings about ICE as far as I know. And he said that his brother was unemployed but had previously worked as a coder. He also added that his brother knew how to use a rifle that his parents owned, but insisted that he is not a marksman, which, again, I mean, if he was trying to shoot at ICE agents based on having anti-ICE on the bullet, he ended up killing 1 detainee, 1 migrant, and hurting 2 others. The brother actually said he would not be able to make any shots like that. So as investigators descended on the scene in Dallas, there were images that showed a poster taped to the side of a vehicle that's believed to belong to the suspect. A sign read, it was a black splatter on the side of the car. It said, radioactive fallout from nuclear detonations that have passed over these areas more than 2 times since 1951. So that's a sign that was on the side of the car that's believed to belong to the shooter. That part hasn't been confirmed. There was a press conference this morning where both local police and also the FBI spoke. Let's listen to a little bit about what the FBI investigator said.
I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. It is unfortunately just the most recent example we've seen of targeted violence, to include here in North Texas, where back on July 4th, we saw a coordinated attack carried out against an immigration detention center in Alvarado, Texas. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack. This will be a whole of government response. There will be no resource not utilized to bring all those individuals who are responsible to bring them to justice and to hold them accountable.
The takeaway from all of this is that the rhetoric has to stop. There are people out there who are seeing what is being placed online, and they're coming and they're doing acts of violence against ICE employees. So that's kind of all I have for today, is that it's just got to stop. It's dangerous, and people are losing their lives.
I want to thank OneSkin for sponsoring today's episode. People sometimes ask me what skincare I use because I don't sleep much. I'm always working, and people are like, oh, you have such a glow. And I just turned 40, and skin does seem to change as we get older, with dryness and with wrinkles. Well, OneSkin has been really amazing for me. It has been a game changer. OneSkin was founded by an all-woman team of scientists who developed the proprietary OS01 peptide. This peptide targets cellular senescence, a key hallmark of aging. It is scientifically proven to decrease lines and wrinkles, boost hydration, and help with thinning skin. They have over 4,000 five-star reviews for their full line of face, body, sun, and travel-sized products. Also, I'm so busy that I can't do a skincare regime with lots of steps, and that's another reason I like OneSkin. Just a few simple steps, and I am good to go. So for a limited time, you can try OneSkin for 15% off using the code Brian when you check out at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with code Brian. Remember to tell them that I sent you when they ask you where you heard about them. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you. So this is actually not the first attack on this facility, which is kind of interesting. Last month, there was a bomb threat that made news here. There was this guy who showed up, who was later identified as Bratton Dean Wilkinson, a 36-year-old, who arrived at the Dallas office behind me, claimed to have a bomb in his backpack, showed the security officer what he said was a detonator on his wrist. There was a whole shelter-in-place order here. Officer called 911. He was taken into custody for making terroristic threats. So there was another incident here recently. I want to show you this. So this appears to be the building that the shooter took his position on, based on photos that I've seen. And it also maybe could be a building related to immigration. There's a lot of services, at least, that seem to cater to immigrants in that building. But it's about 450 feet, a clear view of the ICE office. That is where the shooter was able to get up and pull this off. There's a statement, I want to read part of it, from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. She says, "Our prayers are with the families of those killed and our ICE law enforcement. This vile attack was motivated by hatred for ICE. For months, we've been warning politicians and the media to tone down their rhetoric about ICE law enforcement before someone was killed." So just a tragic situation out here. All right, I'm joined by Tracy Walder, former FBI agent, former CIA officer,
yes.
And my friend.
Yes.
And I'm like, poor Tracy, I'm making her sit here outside
this is
the
great.
ICE facility with me, but she actually lives not that far away, but is an expert on all these things. So what did you think when you heard this?
I think when I heard this, I assumed that there was like a much bigger casualty rate, to be honest with you. I obviously, any casualty is bad. I just thought that because it was someone in higher ground, typically that means that you're going to have more loss of life.
So I was just looking back there. The building behind the ICE facility is where the sniper got up on top of. I think it was like 450 feet. Does it surprise you that he was able to do that?
I mean, I don't mean to sound flippant, or I think if you're unfamiliar with weapons, it seems like it's far away, but it's really not that far away. You have to think about, like, some of these rifles can go up to 600 yards, and that's nowhere near where this was. Also, he's completely unobstructed back there. As I think you mentioned before, it's basically an open parking lot, really. So he's not having to, it's a straight on shot through an open parking lot at max 500 feet, probably. Also, it sounded to me, just from the reporting, that it's completely indiscriminate, the way that he was shooting. So I'm not even sure that he needed to essentially like have good marksman aim to hit.
So he wouldn't have to be, I think he was just shooting all over because you see some of the bullet holes in the windows and...
It seems to me, again, obviously we don't have this confirmed, the target was like the building itself, if that makes any sense, not, unfortunately, the immigrants who were killed. I think the target was essentially the building, and as a result, these individuals were in this van and shots pierced the van.
Yeah, because I was confused because, the bullet said anti-ICE.
Mm-hmm.
So he was against ICE.
Mm-hmm.
But then why kill the migrants?
I just don't think those were his intended targets, to be honest with you. So typically ICE raids and things like that occur at like 5:30. And then they would have been brought back to that Sally port that you mentioned before to be transported, processed, all of that. That's actually the most dangerous time of any prison or intake facility. That's when you're most vulnerable. And so I think that's what they were doing. It was in the midst of processing. They had clearly pulled in and were processing immigrants out. But if you think about it, some of them were probably handcuffed. Some of them were probably restrained. Again, I don't know for certain, but I'm assuming that was the case. And sadly, probably couldn't go anywhere to escape the gunfire, whereas some of the agents were probably not restrained and were able to flee. And that's incredibly sad to think about, in my opinion.
It is really sad. Are you surprised that they don't? I mean, that they have a roof like that someone could get up on top of so close to the ICE facility?
So no, and let me explain why. Because I think, and I talked about this earlier on, I think Connell's show. I think in a detention kind of facility, whether it's ICE, whether it's just a jail or anything, we are very concerned about inside security, right? Like, let's keep people in. We don't want them to get out, right, and be free and run away and be a danger to the public. But I think we have to think about now securing the outside. And that's what I think is not being necessary. I think it's thought about a little bit. I mean, you see buildings, right? They're not easy to access. But I think we need to be probably backing out perimeters more, thinking about the larger perimeter. And I think in a facility like this one, it's more about keeping people inside than those outside.
Than worrying about what's outside.
That's what I think.
And these facilities are all over the country. I mean,
All
it's not
over
like
the
they could
country.
go to every single one and make it totally
No, absolutely
insulated.
not. Yeah. I think it would be extremely expensive. First of all, I don't know that we have the budget for that. Also, where you put them, this facility may have been here before that building was built. I don't know, right? And so we're sitting right next to a vacant building. How easy is it for someone to climb on top of that completely unnoticed, right? And so things ebb and flow. Maybe this building was occupied when that was built, right? Like, everything changes. And so we do have to start thinking, in my opinion, about security differently.
So I was just thinking earlier when I was standing over there, like, I covered the Charlie Kirk assassination, and in that case, there was someone who went up on a roof, and there was also writing on the bullets.
Yeah.
Is that a new phenomenon, the writing on the bullets? Is that?
So yes and no. I think it is something that we've seen in warfare, actually, in the past. We've seen people write, messages on, like, tank missiles and bombs and grenades and those kinds of things. That is actually something that has been prevalent in the history of war, that different countries write messages or unkind messages basically to whatever country they're attacking. And so I do think it's a riff from that, if that makes any sense, like sort of sending this political message. And we've seen it here and there. But again, it's all about the kind of ammunition that they're using too, right? If you're using handgun, that's not going to fit on that kind of ammo. But obviously they're using rifles, so it is going to fit on that kind of ammo. And that's what honestly leads me to believe that this is perhaps a copycat situation, because it's so close. 2 weeks-ish, right, from the shooting of Kirk.
What do you think? I mean, you're just like so smart with your CIA experience and
Really?
everything, and FBI. Like, what do you think big picture here? I mean, is this just going to keep happening? Like, all of these shootings, and it seems to impact. I mean, I was in Minneapolis with the school, the Catholic Church. I mean, the list goes on and on. It affects like every part of
aspect of
society,
life. Yep.
Schools, churches, ICE facilities, political people, Like, I know it's a really big question, but do we just keep doing this and just live in are our cars going to be bulletproof, and this is just the way it is?
I mean, unfortunately, I think so. I know that sounds like a hopeless thing to say, but I don't know what the solution is, right? Like, I don't know how we stop this, because the fact of the matter is with the rhetoric is out there, right? Already, these online communities exist already. And so how do we put that like back in the bottle? I don't have an answer for that necessarily. And unfortunately, I think that as these keep happening, right? And these people become, we're starting to hear here too, I think, maybe it was the Annunciation School shooter that you were talking about. He was very obsessed with school shooters and really like deified them. I think that's what they were talking
Yeah.
about with his social media. And so I unfortunately think that we're going to see, I would be interested to know if this shooter deified the Kirk shooter in a similar way.
It does kind of make you wonder with the roof situation and then the writing on the bullets. Just because of your experience, like, do other countries, I mean, do we just seem so crazy right now to them?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It was interesting. I was reading somewhere that people were saying not to travel to the U.S. because it's dangerous, because of guns and all of that. And like the reality is they have a point. Where things are like are happening in places that we don't expect them to, right? I think we understand, don't travel to a war zone. It's dangerous. We all know that. And so I think that's where that becomes a thing.
Yeah, it's scary. Mm-hmm. Sorry, we're recording. No, you're good. No, it's good. Don't worry. I can edit it. Don't worry. It's okay. No, you're good. It's a little camera. You would never know. You're good. Okay, see ya. So annoying. It's gonna annoy me the whole time. Is there anything else I'm leaving out? I'm trying to think.
No, I
got distracted.
I'm trying not to get too much into like gun debate. Like, I don't think you want to go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they are.
I mean, I can just say, mental illness, though. I mean, like, a lot of these people, I mean, guns aside, like,
I mean,
they mentally, I don't know how they get to this place,
Well, and that's the question, right? I do think that the internet is a huge problem in getting people to that place, obviously. But I also think just from, a gun issue too, then, if we do have a mental health problem, which we do, then we do need to be putting some stopgaps in place, like red flag laws. But Minnesota actually has red flag laws.
Yeah.
And those were not enacted.
Or people didn't know about it too. I think people don't even realize. I think
they are. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And that would have been an individual who probably would have been a prime candidate, right?
Yeah.
Definitely exhibited mental health issues and probably should have had, weapons confiscated. But you're right. If people don't know, how are we supposed to enforce that?
What about for the ICE agents? Like, I've been noticing, a lot of them cover their faces now because they don't want people to know who they are because they have families. It's got to be a scary time to be an ICE agent.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like both sides of that debate, right? People say, you shouldn't wear the mask because it holds you more accountable, right, for your behavior. That's why we have police body cams. Police officers are less violent if they know they have them. That's where that argument comes from. But then on the flip side, you see things like this, right? Or even the bomb threat that was called in here, or Chicago, other places where there have been legitimate attacks against ICE agents, and they don't want their information out there. I even shared that I get doxxed because people don't like that I worked at the CIA. So I can't imagine being actively in a law enforcement organization and people knowing that, and what they would do with that information is very, very scary.
And they're just doing their jobs. The presidents change, and
presidents. Listen, I worked at CIA and FBI under 3 different presidents, 2 different parties, right? It all changes.
Yeah.
We entered 2 different wars. So all of that changes. Allie.
Oh my God, Allie Bradley. You can come. We're recording, but look, you can say hi.
Sure. Hi guys.
No.
Just jump in on your guys' live stream. Hi.
It's our friend Allie Bradley.
Are you guys chatting about
We
the
are.
situation?
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
Cool.
You just got here.
I just got here. How's it going? Do you guys want to read me in front of the camera? What do you
Well,
know
we were
that
just
don't
talking,
know?
and you know all the stuff. You have a lot of ICE connections, but we were just talking
No, you're
about. We were just talking. You want to come in here, by the way?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. You guys stay.
We were just talking about how hard it is for the officers, the agents, right now. They
Right.
wear the masks. People go after their families.
Right.
They get shot at.
She's like the perfect person.
Yeah.
Literally, we've been there. First of all, let's go with the breaking news. DHS just came out with a statement saying that they are surging resources for security around all of the ICE facilities.
That's just what I've been talking about all day.
DHS
Good.
Secretary Tricia McLaughlin just came down with that. So we know that they are
That's great.
going to be surging personnel, which we already knew. I had reported earlier, we already knew that they were moving some people over to Portland because Portland has been such an inflammatory space. We know Antifa has been very involved in the Portland riots and problems there. So we know agents and officers are going to be surging there to assist and help out. But now we know they're going to be doing it across the country. So you talk about kind of the volatility that they're faced with every day. And I've been out there with them on the ground where they're literally circled up around by these people who want to intimidate them, right? They're taking pictures of their license plates.
They want to hurt them.
They're calling them names. And if I can be honest, they're showing up to these protests claiming that they're going to be peaceful. But Brian, they literally have gas masks and shields and knee pads, and they're covering from head to toe their own identities, right? But they're calling for ICE to unmask and all these things. But it's also important to know, and from your standpoint, maybe you can shed a little more light on it, and you too, we've never showed the identities of law enforcement as a news organization. We don't show a cop unless it's the PIO. We don't put their identity out there because law enforcement is a sensitive job and is something that they're automatically a target every day. And we've seen this play out on the ground where they're literally like screaming at them. They have whistles now in some communities in Chicago where if ICE is there, they're supposed to blow the whistle, and if ICE is making arrests, they're supposed to blow it twice, right? They've literally been schooled on how to alert that ICE is around. And again, in Chicago, they're not doing Home Depot raids. They might at some point, but they're not right now. They're going after targets. So they're yelling outside a Broadview facility saying, "Let our neighbors go." And I'm like,
when you say targets, you mean individuals who
that have
on
a rap sheet,
got it.
right?
Yeah.
They're going after them. And what they do, and you know this, they establish a pattern of life. It might take a day. It might take 5 days.
Weeks.
It might take 5
It can
weeks.
take weeks.
Where they will have multiple crews sitting on one person. One guy could warrant all of this. And what they do is they're looking at when they're coming and going, what vehicles they're driving, who's living in the home, the patterns of life. They establish that, and then they go after and arrest that person when it's safe to do so. And their intention is to minimize the impact on the community. They don't want to disrupt the communities. They don't want to go in and rip people from their homes. They want to go in. The one of the operations I was part of, 3 minutes and 36 seconds from the moment they located the target to the moment they put cuffs on him. That's how quickly it happened, and it didn't disrupt anyone's but their own life, right? Because that person had criminal history and had an order of removal as well. And so when you have these instances play out and you have these targets, they're literally people with criminal history. And then you have these anti-ICE protesters out there saying, "Let our neighbors go." And I'm like, do you want the guy that has ag assault against a police officer, battery against his wife, cocaine possession, larceny, theft, and trespassing? Let's go in and get that guy out for you. Yeah. That's what the reality is. But right now, LA kind of was the blueprint, and LA might have been wrong in some spaces because they went out and kind of just rounded people up. And Trump wants that optic, right? They want the publicity around this because they're not the first ones to do that, Brian. We saw this happen under Obama. We saw mass roundups as well. My sister was working at a facility in Washington State, at a processing facility for an aerospace manufacturer. And she called us crying, saying, "My friends are being ripped out of here." This is not the first time that mass deportations have happened. But this is, unfortunately, I think the Trump administration's working against themselves by publicizing all of this and kind of making light of it, right?
I mean,
just had a
Pokemon game just came
video
out
yesterday.
Why would you do that?
I think they pulled it. I haven't been able to find it.
It also puts ICE agents at risk
But
when
also,
you do
if
that.
you are against all of this, then the only way to change it, if that's what you wish, is to vote differently, peacefully protest, but to go after ICE agents, people who are just doing their jobs.
It's the violence that's wrong.
Yeah,
and they're telling them, quit your job and save your soul. You can still quit your job. You can quit your job. ICE has been around for decades. Border Patrol has been around for 101 years.
Yeah.
ICE has been around since 9/11. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
because we would take them. That. We would take ICE. So as an FBI agent working in Santa Ana, California, which is a heavily immigrant community, and there are individuals that are there illegally. And what we would do is, as an FBI agent, if we're enacting an arrest, and these were people that, were members of MS-13, gangs, clear rap sheets, we would take them with us because they would be usually, processed and deported immediately. We wouldn't even deal with them. We never had protesters out there. Everyone was usually pleased that these people were out of their communities. Right. And so it's just interesting to see how that has changed.
And what's frustrating is the showing up, being fully ready for a fight, right? If you're peacefully protesting, why are you ready for a fight if you don't anticipate that volatility, right? When we were there was a group that kind of created a flashpoint. The one person threw a tear gas canister that had fallen off the belt of an agent. And that actually came right in our direction. The video is wild because the canister comes at us and they got taken to the ground instantly. They were probably just throwing it away, trying to get it away from them. But regardless, that was an issue. And that same group that was kind of inflammatory settled down a little bit. There was a prayer group. We had mayors there. We had the lieutenant governor there. Over the loudspeaker, though, while all this is happening, they're calling for an order of dispersal, right? I asked the lieutenant governor, hey, should they disperse? They're being called to disperse. And she said, why? Why would we? We're out here exercising our right. We can do this. We have every right to be out here. But again, you have these flashpoints that come every time a vehicle comes or goes from that facility. And that the volatility and the escalation rises every single time we saw a van go in. They would get up off the curb because they were sitting there peacefully, weren't doing anything. And then a van would arrive to transport, would bring it into the facility, and then all of a sudden they would circle the gates.
Do we know anything about the victims?
We don't know anything about the victims, but the timeline matches with what I understand, how ICE operates. So if it was around 6:45 in the morning, they were likely transporting them into the facility.
Which is exactly what I said.
Unless they were transporting to a longer term detention facility, that could be the case. But the reality is, at the time, they were likely a target that was apprehended that morning, and they were likely going to work. Pattern of life: most people go to work around 6, 7 a.m.
We typically enact arrests very early in the morning because it's when people are incapacitated.
Right. Everyone's going out around 4 a.m.
It's pretty normal.
To sit on their targets. They know they're going to go to work at 6. They have administrative warrants for the most part. They don't have high-risk judicial warrants where they can go into the residence. They have to get them outside of the residence. So they have to establish that target is there because they can't go in and upend someone's entire life and their family's life and all these things with an administrative warrant. So they'll go and they'll arrest them after that pattern of life is established and they know who their target is. They will go in and they will circle them up. They will make a traffic stop or they will arrest them as soon as they come out of the building, depending on their situation. A lot of times their apartment complexes, you don't have access to the front door to even door knock. I mean, we've been there when a Lithuanian subject was taken into custody and the doorman quite literally lied and said he's not in here. They had an ankle monitor on him. He was pinging inside the residence and the home, the landowner was saying, no, that guy's not here. So those are things that they're up against. But in the timeline on this, it makes sense that they probably arrested those individuals that were in the van. I don't know how many were in the van. We do know 3 were hit, right? So we know at least 3 people were in the van, but they were likely targeted individuals. I would say there could have been collaterals too, but they were likely someone in that van was a target for them, where they went in to arrest that person, and maybe there were others around them in the vehicle that might have been here illegally, or in the home that might have been here illegally if they opened the door and found that there were others there. They could have had collaterals in that van as well. But I would be willing to wager that one person in that van at least was a targeted arrest this morning that they were making, and that's why they were transporting a van inside of that Sally Port would make sense. The other alternative would be if they were moving them to a long-term facility, which again, the timeline of it,
they just don't
I think in the morning,
do that in the morning.
It would be a more afternoon behavior.
If we were ever transporting anyone, even on the FBI agent side, it would usually be about 3.
Yeah.
That was just always the time that we did it. Just like you always do arrests as early as you are allowed to.
As early or as late as they're allowed to. And they only work till about 10 p.m. So they're not doing overnight arrests. They're not, as far as I know, the agents
legally
are on the
can't.
ground.
You typically need very specialized warrants to be able to do that.
So, there have been cases where people have seen people operating late overnight hours. That's not true. That's not accurate. There was that one woman that was kidnapped, and we learned later that wasn't true, right? That it was a late night operation. And I'm like, red flag. They're not doing late night operations.
The only thing they would be doing potentially overnight is sitting on their target, right?
Sitting on a target.
Establishing that pattern of life that
So
Allie
they might
was
get there at
mentioning.
2 in the morning if they know they leave
and just
at
chill
4,
and
or
wait.
whatever it might be.
But other than that, there's not activity of that sense going on.
And
you might be sitting there.
It's not safe for the agents, and it's not safe for the targets either. Nobody wants to be in a bad situation. I say everyone wants to go home at the end of the day. The target obviously is not necessarily going home, but that is the reality. They want to be able to conduct these operations safely and with as little of disruption as possible. But again, then you're seeing DHS put ice hats on corn husks and do these things and make light of people's lives that are impacted. So you do have this narrative that is being uplifted on this side and this side, right? If you're mad about the situation, you're seeing an agency make light of it and kind of make jokes about it. That might inflame you even more. And I don't really know what happened with this individual. obviously had anti-ice,
Yeah.
scrawled across one of the bullets.
From a law
But we
enforcement
don't know.
perspective, can I just add this, like, one point about the detainees that they had? I think people forget too, like, as a law enforcement officer, you may not like some of the criminals, right? You may not like what they did, but it is actually our job, and it's the law that we have to keep them
Yes.
safe. And
Yes.
so you have to think about this from that perspective
Yeah.
too.
And they do
These,
transport them in their own vehicles a lot of times
To keep
without
them safe.
cages and stuff
And also,
like that.
we don't
They
know who
are
these
trying
people
to.
are. I mean, they could have been. There's a lot of good,
Right.
migrants. Obviously, I mean, who
Right.
knows? You know,
Like
it's,
I said, there
it's
could be
it's
collaterals
very
in that.
sad, regardless.
have
it's
no idea.
incredibly sad.
And you think about their families finding out about this, like back in Mexico or wherever. It's
Yeah.
terrible. All right.
It's a devastating situation.
Thank you for coming into the
Hey,
conversation.
thanks.
Good to see
Thanks,
you.
I'm
Yeah,
glad to
thank you,
jump in.
Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
All right, see you
appreciate
guys
it.
later.